Water utility Rand Water says efforts to increase the almost depleted water levels at reservoirs across affected metros in Gauteng continue. This follows outages in Midrand and large parts of the City of Tshwane following a series of failures in Rand Water's bulk supply system over the past week. These include repair work at the Palmiet Pump Station, a power trip at the Zuikerbosch Treatment Plant, and another power failure at Palmiet System in Midrand, in the City of Johannesburg. Tembisa in Ekurhuleni as well as Laudium in Attredgeville and Soshanguve in Tshwane are some of the most affected areas. In Johannesburg, Executive Mayor Dada Morero says work is underway to build 4 more reservoirs to increase water supply capacity in Midrand and surrounding areas. The Executive Mayor Dada Morero joins us now for more. Mayor, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. I want to begin the conversation here on the issues of reservoirs. The City of Johannesburg has 98 reservoirs. 21 of them, at least by the end of January, needed urgent repairs. Yet you choose to build 4 more new reservoirs. Why is the focus on more reservoirs rather than just fixing the 21 that need urgent repair?
Okay. Now, it will naturally make sense to try and balance. Whilst you do repairs of the old infrastructure, you must also be cognizant that development is also taking place. So it is required also that you also give a balance and do more infrastructure. So that's the total idea. You know that Midrand, for example, is growing much faster. Developments are emerging, residential, commercial spaces that we have seen being built in the last 3 years, and there's continuous development. Therefore, whilst you deal with the old infrastructure, it is necessary also to bring new infrastructure to enhance and increase the capacity that you may require in that particular area. So it's basically putting a balance between dealing with the new infrastructure based on the developments that you are faced with, and of course balancing in terms of refurbishment of the old infrastructure.
Yeah, Mayor, I just perhaps want to focus on January. Across the month of January, the City of Johannesburg had experienced in excess of 20 water outages across the city. In fact, it almost averaged at 1 water outage per day across the City of Johannesburg. Let's focus on Midrand and double-click in on that. How many water reservoirs are in Midrand and how many of them are functional?
Well, in the current, we're looking at about 5 reservoirs that were impacted by the leak and the repairs at the Klipfontein Reservoir, which is a rainwater reservoir. And so they were impacted. We are still not seeing an improvement in terms of the Grand Central Reservoir. We're still battling there. But the rest of the 4, we have seen an improvement. And in fact, Ward 110, Ward 112, and Ward 132, we are seeing that the customers are now receiving a water supply. We're still worried, however, but we're hoping that with the next few days, we'll see everybody receiving full supply. Rainwater did indicate, however, that for the system to fully recover, as you know, that the Klipfontein Reservoir itself, Klipfontein Reservoir, is also supplying Tshwane and parts of Ekurhuleni and Johannesburg. So we need more time to get the reservoir to full potential so that it can then supply water throughout the 3 areas or the 3 metros.
More broadly, Mayor, of the 98 reservoirs that exist across the City of Johannesburg, like I mentioned earlier, 21 of them needed urgent repairs. How many of them have been repaired in the last couple of days?
Well, the state of reservoirs that are in a bad state is actually 45. We have commissioned now 19.
So that's more than half. Just for context, that's more than half of the reservoirs across the City of Johannesburg are in a bad, almost non-functional state.
About 45 that are affected, that requires refurbishment. They've been damaged over time. Some of them are 50 years and older, and we needed to refurbish them now because they can no longer cope. And we have therefore commissioned, in fact, not 1922, that we are busy with, that we are refurbishing. We hope in the next financial year we would have completed and then we'll bring the balance into the new financial year with the hope that we'll then complete those probably in 2027. 2028 budget will then complete the balance of those. But at the same time, it is also important to build new so that you balance. So I know that in that area of Midrand, we're doing 4 new reservoirs and 3 more towers. 1 tower is almost getting into completion, and we should be able to open it quite soon. And in fact, what that does, it brings new capacity of just over 27 million liters in the area. So we should be able to cope with the growing developments that we're seeing in Midrand, and it will help us a long way to deal with the challenges that we have had in Midrand.
Yeah, just very quickly, the 22 reservoirs that are currently being refurbished, what is the timeline on that? You said by the end of this financial year, which ends at the end of June, if I have my understanding correctly.
No. I'm saying the funding of it is on this financial year, and we're hoping to conclude them as part of the funding of this financial year, and the new ones will get into the new financial year. The work that has to be done, it depends on a particular reservoir. Others will be completed in June this year, others will be completed next year, and so on and so on. So I can't give specific timelines on the completion work, but in this financial year, we should be financing just around 22 of those reservoirs.
Yeah, my apologies for rushing you through this. We are quite thin on time. You have a capex, a water capex of 1.7 billion for this financial. It falls far short of the nearly 30 billion that you need to rehaul the entire water infrastructure in the city of Johannesburg, which you say is quite aged. How much of that 1.7 billion capex is being spent on refurbishment and maintenance in this fiscal?
Well, our bulk, a bulk of that money goes into infrastructure. It is at about 1.2, 1.3 billion that we put for infrastructure development. But in essence, we must indicate that the money is not enough. What we have in our coffers, we need to increase. We need to raise more money in the market. Our estimations suggest that we need about 3 billion a year for us to be able to cope with addressing the infrastructure that requires refurbishment in the entire Johannesburg.
Yeah.
So as part of the work that we're doing in our finance department is to try and find ways of how best we can raise the financial resources that we may require to do these things with speed and agency.
Yeah. Just a last question, Mayor. The entirety of your term as the mayor of the city of Johannesburg has been defined by water crises, one after the other. You've had to address communities that are facing persistent water crises. In fact, that seems to be part of the argument that your detractors and opponents are making around their attempt to get you removed as the mayor of the city of Johannesburg, and of course in the motion of no confidence filed by Al Jamaa and seconded by the UDM, which is yet to be voted on. Of course, the debate has already taken place on that. What is your response to that? What is your response to those who say you failed as a mayor in the city of Johannesburg, particularly in supplying the most basic of needs, which is water?
In December, we were faced with the routine maintenance, and we communicated to communities. This time around, the main reservoir that supplies Johannesburg and Pretoria or Tshwane was affected by a leak which requires refurbishment. So does that suggest a failure? I don't know. I've not failed as the mayor. The number of achievements that we have achieved in Johannesburg, amongst others included, is a fully funded budget that we're operating on. Our high impact service delivery, focusing on key issues around service delivery.
Yeah.
However, in relation to the motion, I don't think the motion is related to any matters that relates to failure of service delivery, and at the right point or at the right time, we will give the reasons of what was advanced by political parties in the political management committee on what is the actual reasons related to this motion.
This feels as good a time as any, Mayor. What were those reasons advanced?
Well, the reasons has nothing to do with service delivery. Citizens raised are basic issues that do not even require a motion. For example, the mayor not being able to attend consistently meetings of the PMC, an allegation that the mayor has not been working with the two previous city managers and the current city manager. So those issues, in my own thinking, do not even suggest there's any matter that relates to failure in relation to service delivery in the city. In fact, if you look at our track record, you'd see that there's been an improvement. Albeit the fact that there are challenges, but we have made strides in as far as advancing the program of reclaiming Johannesburg, ensuring bylaw enforcement and crime prevention, financial sustainability, and advancing on the quality of services that we provide.
Just one last issue that I have to touch on before I let you go, Mayor. What happened to the impacts of the presidential working group that was instituted in March last year, as well as the bomb squad that you announced, which was meant to turn around these grand-scale, the bomb squad, which was meant to turn around these grand-scale failures of service delivery, particularly around the water crisis? What happened to those two interventions?
The presidential working group is working very well with us. It has pulled the Department of Water and Sanitation, rainwater, and all other issues. If we have to look at the working group or the group that is focusing on water and water infrastructure, is doing quite well with the support of the minister and the deputy minister that have been hands-on in supporting us in that area, which includes the program that we're undertaking with National Treasury, referring to service entities reforms, focusing on how we're going to change the financing of infrastructure and how we're going to use the revenue that we get from water. The bomb squad is a team of experts or former city managers, people with expertise, former Joburgers who have availed themselves, their time, expertise and knowledge to help us. And in fact, if you can look into the record of how they've been helping us, you'll see that they've made serious strides, and the team is there. This morning, we're there at the high impact service delivery, focusing once again in the inner city. And we're seeing improvements every time we're implementing these programs.
Mayor, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. That's the mayor in the city of Johannesburg, Dada Morero, talking to us there about the water crisis and, of course, the motion of no confidence that seems to be a spectre that looms over his tenure and future in the city of Johannesburg. Thank you.